our first webinar for mentoring. We are going to talk about strengths-based mentoring. I will talk for about 45 minutes, and then you will have the time. We will have the time for questions in case there is something that you would like us to elaborate more. So I would just like to say a few things about strengths-based mentoring. It's basically it's based on the latest developments of positive psychology and identifying people's strengths, identifying what is good in people instead of trying to improve their weaknesses. And so it has been, in research, it has been proven that if you focus on strengths, you can have better results and better performance than if you try to, if you focus on people's weaknesses. And for you as mentors, it's very important first to be able to know your own strengths and then to be able to spot the mentee's strengths. So I thought that this is a very interesting topic for someone, to identify their own and other people's strengths. Basically, what I see in strengths-based mentoring is not just a skill. It's not just a task that the mentor can do, but basically it's a whole change in our mindsets towards positive processes, towards strengths and success. And this is a whole change in all the area of people communication and people development. Because if we see how psychology has developed up to now, and especially after the end of the Second World War, psychology focused on weaknesses basically and pathology. But now people don't want to care about their survival more, but they want prosperity. They want happiness and hope, both in their personal and in their professional life. Also, up to now, especially, in the US, in Europe as a whole, in Greece very much, people used to think who they are and where they have been in the past, but now there's a huge new potential about, if we can imagine who we can be and where we can go, what do we have to, the power, the strength that we can release and reach our potential in the future. So, educational systems probably up to now focused on people's weaknesses and they tried to cover gaps, but now it's very important that we identify and build on our strengths in all areas of our activity, in all areas of our life. Also, the new perspective that positive psychology is suggesting is that it's not enough anymore to wonder why you fail, but it's very important that you visit your past, you visit your successful past, and focus on what you have achieved. Focus on your successes. And this takes us to the next point, that it's not enough to analyze the causes of your failure anymore, whether that be professional failure, personal failure, but it's very important to make a self-analysis, to make a self-evaluation in your past and see what actually helped you, what actions, what behaviors helped you in the past to achieve things. And you can bring these in the present so that you can achieve your goals in the future as well. Also, changing our mindset means that we should no longer try to avoid failure anymore, but also we have to really demand the success we deserve. And we can learn from others. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from ourselves and others how we can succeed in the future. And finally, one area, one thought that we had and defined how we behave is that we thought that if we improve our weaknesses, we can be successful. But now, the new suggestions in research, the new findings in positive psychology tell us that, you can succeed if you build on your strengths rather to try to improve your weaknesses. It's like, I mean, weaknesses are a minus. So how much can you go from -3 to +7, for example? The distance is very long. But you can definitely go from +5 to +8 and 9. So we see that if we really change this mindset, if we see ourselves and others in a new light, in a new successful, positive and strong light, then we can help people improve their performance. You as mentors of entrepreneurs can guide them, can support them in improving their performance and have peak performance actually and high achievements, which apart from measurable results in their business will also help build their self-confidence, self-efficacy, and will help them believe in themselves, that they're able to achieve things. So it's very important that we make this introduction before we go specifically to strengths, awareness, and identification, that we need to change our mindset. We need to think in positive new ways to help ourselves and others. Now, before we continue, you have seen this before. You had this exercise in the meeting, in our meeting in face-to-face in Athens. But what I would like you to do is to take a few minutes and from this mapping of strengths, which is based on research and studies of the strengths-based approach, I would like you for a few minutes to identify your own strengths, to see at least, I mean, 3 or 4 strengths that you have and you use in your everyday life, in your job, in your personal life, so that we can then discuss more in a more meaningful way, in a more personal way. So please take 3 minutes to identify 3 of the strengths that you use in your everyday life. When you are ready, you would please send me by chat some of your of the strengths that you identified for yourself, and later in the Q&A session we will be able to speak about examples of how you're using these strengths in your everyday life to achieve your goals. Thank you, Alexandre. Alexandros writes that he has decisiveness, authenticity, and creativity as his 3 strengths that he identified, and later on, if you want, Alexandra, you can tell us about how you use them and how they help you. Anybody else that would like to share their strengths with us? Vasily says vision, strategy, strategic thought, and decisiveness. Very good. Thank you, Vasily. Any other ideas? Any other? Somebody else? Maria? Hello, Maria. Maria has relationship building, creativity, interest for others. Thank you very much. Calliope says creativity, programming, optimism. Thank you, Calliope. And Adigoni says vision, creativity, enthusiasm, relationship building, and work ethic. Thank you all very much. Okay, now it's very important to see how we can identify strengths, our own strengths or other people's strengths. Before continuing to the next slide, I would like to say that there are different ways in which we can identify strengths, and that can be, for example, scientific tests that have been developed by psychologists, and I'm happy to share information with anybody who is interested. Another way to identify our strengths is to ask our peers, our colleagues, our friends, family members, to ask, what they see in us as a strength. What do they see that we use in order to achieve goals? So these are 2 external ways, if you want, in which we can identify strengths. But there is a very important way, a very important internal way in which to identify strengths, and we will see this as we go on. But before that, let me begin by saying that strengths are based on our inherent talents. They're based on what we are born with. A talent is a way that we process information, a way that we interact with others. The talent is our worldview, the way we perceive the world around us, habits, behaviors, beliefs that we have as individuals, and they help us they help us be more more effective in our activities. Basically, our talents represent our uniqueness. Our talents is what makes us unique as individuals, and what differentiates us from other people. And basically, they're very directly connected with our performance and the things we achieve. They help us, be peak performers in our job. And what is one way to identify your talents? This is a self-awareness process, a self-evaluation process. Actually, think, for example, what you learn easily at work. This could relate to a talent that you have. Which is the reason why other people congratulate you or reward you? What do your peers like most in you? This could in somehow, relate to one of your talents. Also, what thrills you? What do you get excited about? What have you achieved that you're very proud of? What do you do naturally without a lot of effort, without trying very much? And all these answers can help you identify the talents that you have in order to use them more in your life. Now, the thing is that talents are not enough. They are a very good basis for our performance, but they're not enough. Why? Because in order to use them effectively, in order to use them to achieve our goals, and later on in order to make them strengths, we have to build, we have to cultivate our talents with knowledge and skills. It's not enough to have something from birth. It's not enough to have a predisposition, an inherent quality. It will not really help us unless we dress it, unless we build it with knowledge, skills, and also this involves practice, experience, feedback from others, feedback from the environment. So the talent is a good basis, but we need to cultivate it. It's like as if we had a nice garden in our house, but unless we dig, unless we put, you know, nice chemicals, you know, to make them more fertile, there's no way we can use them. So talent is a good ground, but we have to fertilize it with knowledge and skills. Now, I told you before that we have 3 ways of identifying our strengths, and one was the scientific questionnaires that we can take online, and they give us the results that we can debrief on. The second way was that we can ask others about what they see in us. And the third way, which is very important, is speak to ourselves. Have a self-talk, we could say, that's, you know, ourself probably is the best source of knowledge about our strengths. So let's suppose that I have a talent and I cultivate it with knowledge and skills, and it leads to peak performance. Now, this is one of the indications that I'm using a strength, that the talent is a strength. Take, for example, communication. Take public speaking, if you want to have an example. Take relationship building, or you know, scheduling, organization. Take any of the things that you identified as your strengths. Now, in order to say that one of these areas is your strengths, you have to have peak performance, but on a continuous basis. You need peak performance all the time. So this is an indication that you're strong in that activity. In creativity, for example, in optimism, I'm using your answers, in relationship building. So every time you try, for example, to connect people, to build a relationship with others, to have rapport with other people, and you do it very well, this might be an indication that you're using a strength. Now, another indication for your strengths is that you have to use them frequently. I mean, you know, if you only once build a good relationship with somebody, but you cannot repeat it, you cannot do it with other people that you meet, this could be chance, you know, this could be a random event. So in order to be able to say that you're using your strength, you have to do this often. So you have to be good at building relationships with people on a repeated basis. I wouldn't say all the time, that might be an exaggeration, but at least most of the times you have to be able to build relationships in an effective way. The third indication that we are using our strengths, and to my mind one of the most important, is the energy we draw out of that. You know, we might be very well, very good in building relationships because this is demanding, this is part of our job, for example, and we might do it frequently for the same reason. We might have to do it every way at work. We might be a customer service manager or a vet trainer, for that matter, because vet trainers must possess this skill to be able to build rapport and relationships with their trainees. So let's say that every day we have to build relationships, and we're very good at that, but we do not get any energy out of that. At the end of the day, we feel exhausted. We feel that we have nothing more to give to this process. We don't want to communicate anymore, and we don't want to relate anymore. So this means that probably it's not a strength that you have. Probably, you know, you have to do it because of your job, because it's part of your job, but it is not something that gives you energy and makes you happy. So in this case, probably you're not using a strength. And what is the what does this mean? What is why is this important? Well, this is important because it cannot take you very far. It cannot take you very far into the future, you know, to do this as part of your job. Plus, you might experience burnout. If we see research on people burnout, employee burnout, we see that it's not because they work long hours, but it's because they work in something that they don't really like. It's something that does not give them energy. That's why they experience burnout. So it's good to remember this, I mean, at least initially, these three indications that we only know. They're very personal, especially the energy parts. They're very personal, and we, you know, we can know whether they are our strengths. Now, we also have to say that everybody has strengths. What happens, however, is that 1 in 3 uses them. Research shows that 1 in 3 uses their strengths. And there are various reasons for that. Probably, and most oftenly, I would say, it's because people don't know about their strengths, because they haven't, you know, they're not aware of which these strengths are and how they can use them to achieve their goals. Probably sometimes they don't want to express them as strengths, and this happens, for example, with ambition. If ambition is one of your strengths, you might not want to express it very openly in your interactions with others, because you might feel that, you know, other people will criticize you, for example, or other people do not make specific, you know, action planning about how to use their strengths. So, which is of course normal. If you don't know them, if you're not aware of them, how can you use them? But the thing is that we can really achieve a lot if we are aware of our strengths and if we use them most of the time in our everyday interactions and activities in order to achieve our goals. This is really important. Now, research in strengths, well, there are various research strands, research schools, if I might say, working on strengths. Here I'm using only one example, one research area, and they have identified strengths in 5 different families. Actually, they have identified, this research team have identified 250 strengths, and they have come out to this 64 most important of them. But of course here, because I'm limited in terms of space, I have used some examples under each of the strengths families. So the first strength family is that's relating to being. In other words, the way we lead our life, the way we behave generally in our life as individuals. And this family includes strengths as authenticity, you know, as an individual, courage in making choices and supporting these choices, curiosity and how much we want to learn about the world and about others, humility, or in other words, not being very, you know, boastful about our achievements, responsibility, taking 100% responsibility of our actions instead of giving and responsibility to others or blaming others about our choices. And this has to do with whether we are an individual which has an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. Self-awareness, how much self-talk we do and how much we know ourselves and our strengths and our goals. Ambition, if we, if as personalities we have high goals and we have high ambitions in our life. The vision that you also mentioned, some of the participants mentioned as a strength. If we have a clear vision in our life, both personal and professional, if we have, a purpose, something higher than ourselves that we want to achieve. So these are all the strengths related to being, and they, as you can see, they're higher processes, they're higher selves about generally how we lead our lives. And now the second family, the family of communication, relates to the strengths that we have as individuals in interaction with others, of course. All the strengths are in interaction with others. And one strength could be, for example, explanation. I mean, imagine how important it is for a vet trainer to be able to explain things, how much they facilitate learning if they have explanatory strengths, give clarity to what they want to say, give meaning. Also feedback. This is very important, both for vet trainers but also for mentors, to be able to receive and give feedback that is specifically task-oriented, specific and timely. And imagine how this strength can facilitate the learning and development of other people. Humor, yes, this is a strength as well because it can break the ice. It can facilitate learning as well. Active listening. I mean, this is a basic strength in communication, in all aspects, in all types of communication. In negotiation, for example, your number one strength must be active listening, to listen to the arguments of the other side so as to be able to respond. Storytelling, both in the literature of strengths but also in the literature of mentoring. Storytelling is a very important competence because it's a way of teaching, if I could say that. But I don't really mean teaching because mentoring does not teach, but it's a way of transmitting experience, transferring experience from the mentor to the mentee, and so the mentee can learn from the mentor's experience. Scribe is our strength in writing. If we are able to express ourselves in writing well, then we have a strength in that. For example, how can somebody become a journalist without having a strength in writing and communicating meaning and messages? Spotlight is a strength that some people have, and they want to be the center of attention, really. So they might do different things for others to pay attention to them. And the last strength that I have included in communication is kindness. In other words, in our interactions, we don't really we want to achieve our goals, but in a way that is also acceptable to the other individual, in kindness. The next strengths family, motivation, includes adventure, catalyst. Adventure, I think, is very straightforward, that we want to try new things and we take the risk. And this relates to entrepreneurs, because if you examine the profile of entrepreneurs, you would say that they have adventure in their blood, in the sense of taking risks and taking the company forward, the business forward. Catalyst is someone who is strong in introducing change and also persuading other people to follow, to support the change. And this again is very important for entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs really they're really after change in society, change in the labor markets, in the market in general. Competitiveness is someone who really takes energy and has it as a strength. He really likes to compete with others, of course, to achieve the goals, and he does it very well. I would say, for example, that athletes, for that matter, would have strengths in competitiveness, but also entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs exit their comfort zone and they go out in the open market and they compete with others, you know, for a market share. So this is a strength that they have. And also they have self-confidence because they think that they will achieve their goals. So it's also very important for the mentor to identify if the entrepreneur has this as a strength. Improvement is a strength that, you know, it's a continuous effort to improve things, to make processes easier, to bring better results. Now, resilience, this strength has attracted a lot of attention, both in the strengths literature, but also in the success literature and peak performance. Now, resilience means that you go on despite obstacles, that you have difficulties, but you come back. You come back even stronger to achieve your goals. And I would say that both in the literature of entrepreneurship, but also in the literature of success, we see this, you know, the will to achieve your goals, the will to come back, the fact that the fact that obstacles do not bring you down is a very important strength for people. The work ethic, we always work and interact with others based on ethics. So we might have a goal, but we also want to achieve it through ethical means. Love for learning is another strength, and also, for example, a strength of the mentor is to be able to support other people's the mentees' love for learning. So this is also very important. Now, if we continue with the next strengths family, which has to do with relationships, the way we relate to others. This includes empathy. Empathy is the ability that we have to understand the other person's position, actually to be in their shoes, in a way. So empathy is mostly used when the mentor has gone through a similar situation with a mentee, and he can understand exactly, well, exactly, but you know, he can understand well what the mentee felt in the situation, what were possible consequences. So the mentor can be in the mentee's shoes. Another very important strength for the mentor is development, to care about the development of themselves and others, to do it well, to support other people to develop, but also to get energy out of that when he does it. Building rapport. This is very important for any role that we have. I mean, the trainers, mentors, we have to be able to connect with the other people, to build a rapport, to bring trust forward. Otherwise, I mean, the mentoring relationship, for example, will not work if you haven't managed to build rapport with your mentee. So it's very important, you know, that we do it well and also often, and we get energy out of that. Persuasion. Persuasion is our strength if we manage to bring other people to our own view of things, if we can pass our message and make other people understand what we mean and how we view things. Teamwork, another very important process in today's organizations and in businesses. We are able to work with others, combine our skills and experiences, pursue common goals and achieve common desired results. Leadership, we are able to provide guidance to other people, to show them the way, to guide them, bring them closer to their development, another very important strength, and of course interest in others. Now, I would say that for the mentor, all of the strengths families are very important, but Also, these strengths under the relationship family are fundamental. I mean, you cannot, someone cannot really be an effective mentor, a good mentor, unless he's able to manage these relationships with the mentee, and unless they really care about the mentee's development, in an authentic interest for the mentee. And the last family, the last strengths family, is thinking. So it's a kind of cognitive. It includes all the cognitive processes, and actually it includes a lot of the strengths you mentioned. So it has creativity. Now imagine how important creativity is for entrepreneurs. So imagine how important it is for you as mentors to be able to spot whether your mentee, your entrepreneur mentee, has this strength, and help him or her to use it more, to apply it more in their business. Another strength, another thinking strength, is detail. So someone who is strong in that, he wants to, or she wants to be sure that every detail has been thought of, has been covered. There are no mistakes. So we're very particular about small details in the big picture. Judgment. Well, I should say about judgment that Aristotle considers it the mother strength, because as we will see, I mean, as we are born, as we grow up, strengths do not come to us with a manual. There is no manual anywhere that tells us exactly how to behave in different situations, which strengths to use in different situations with different people at different times, So judgment, krisi in Greek, is the umbrella strength, I would say, because I will give some examples later on, and you will see how sometimes also our strengths come in conflict one with the other. And it's our judgment, our phronesis, that will help us, will guide us in order to use the most appropriate strengths in every situation. And I will come back to that. Another strength in the thinking family is optimism. Seligman, who is considered the father of positive psychology in the United States, has written a fantastic book, has done fantastic research about optimism. His book is called Learned Optimism, and he says that people who are optimists do not take things personally. They do not think that one misfortune, one problem will last forever, and that it is their own fault and there is no hope for the future. So, and of course, pessimists, on the other hand, are people who think that once a problem appears, that's the end, and it will always be there, and it is their own fault, and they can do nothing about it. So imagine this two sides of thinking, optimist or pessimist, and how important it is to help the mentees to be optimists, because in a way optimism can be learned. So it's a very important process. Prevention is a strength of someone who is cautious, and he thinks about different options and possibilities in advance, and so he plans to prevent problems from happening. So this is a strength which relates to a high level of abstract thinking and calculating and evaluating situations in advance. Insight relates to how much we know ourselves and how much we can understand others, and probably expect their reactions. So this strength also relates to our self-awareness and how much we value our relationships with others. Problem solving, which is very straightforward. I mean, there are people who are strong in that, and they get energy from solving problems all the time, so it's a challenge for them. Strategic thinking, seeing ahead in the future and be able to make choices that bring real change. for anybody who is interested, all this research, I mean the Strengths family, has been taken by Linley. Linley is a psychologist. He works in the United Kingdom, and he has written extensively about strengths and how we can use them to achieve goals. So anybody who is interested, I can give more information. But let me stay for a couple of minutes. Let me go back to judgment and say a few things about about how we can use our strengths in the end, because we said that they don't come with a manual, So I would like to give an example, a very, simple and everyday example. Say that one of our friends is ready to go to a very important interview, and you see them just 10 minutes before they leave the house to go to the interview, and they ask you, do I look well? Do you like my clothes? Do you like the way, I'm dressed? And you see them very excited, but, well, really, you don't think that they look very well. And now comes the dilemma. I mean, do you tell them? Do you use your strength in honesty, for example, or do you use your strength in kindness and empathy? I mean, imagine it's only 10 minutes before the interview. You don't know if your friend has another set of clothes to wear that are appropriate for the interview. You don't want to hurt their feelings, really. You want to encourage them to go to the interview and get the job. So the question then comes, which of your strengths do you use? Are you being honest? Do you tell the absolute truth about what you think? Or do you try to encourage your friend more rather than, demotivate them, for that matter? So this brings in the question of judgment, because even strengths are not, might become something else, but might become weaknesses if we use them without measure, really. So basically, we have to find the fine line. How much do we use our strengths in any given situation? Take humor, for example. I mean, if humor is your strength, it might be good if you use it in measurement, but imagine if you always tell jokes, no matter the situation, no matter the other people you're interacting with. So in order to, to be safer in how much and which of the strengths we use, first, we need to think about relativity. I mean, how relevant are our strengths to the situation? Who are the people? Where is an activity taking place? Where is the situation taking place? What is the psychology of the people? I mean, what is their mood? Also, what is your relationship with the people? I mean, if you take feedback, for example, how much honest feedback can you give? Do you think, are you sure that the other person will take it will accept it in a good way, will accept it by perceiving that you really care about their performance, and you say this for their improvement? So we have to think about how relevant, the relevance of our strengths to the situation, okay, the people, the time, the relationship we have with them. Also, and following from the example with the interview I said before, many times we are faced with a situation where our strengths come in conflict between them. So in the case of the interview, do we tell our friends about their appearance? So are we honest? Do we tell the truth? Or do we say, no, you look fine, you will be fantastic in the interview, so as to motivate them, to boost their psychology and help them do well in the interview? So we use our judgment when two of our strengths come into conflict. And then, the third thing we need to think about when it comes to using our strengths is that, this theory is all very good, but what happens in real life? What does it really mean in real life? It's as if you know, for years we study how to drive a car, but the real life is when we get into the car and out in the road, and we really have to do the thing, you know, have to use the skills. So it's exactly the same with strengths. I mean, theory is fantastic, but, you know, what comes to application, I mean, what are we going to do when it comes to application? So these three things, the relevance, the conflict, and the application of strengths are elements that you need to consider, are thoughts that you need to have when you want to spot your own strengths and other people's strengths as mentors, when you want to help others to use their strengths in real life. So yes, I tend to agree with Aristotle, you know, that judgment is the mother strength of all. So I just wanted to share this with you. Now, positive psychology and the strengths research have also received criticism, as you would everybody would expect, because, you know, as individuals, we don't only have strengths, but we also have our weaknesses. And considering all those decades where research in psychology and people development focused on weaknesses, how can we suddenly change mindset and focus on our strengths? Now, the criticism against positive psychology and strengths is that if you focus only on people's strengths, you limit their potential for development because they are strong anyway. So the potential, the percentage of development is not very large, is not very high. So on the other hand, the critique goes that if you focus on weaknesses, if you improve weaknesses, there is room for development. There's potential, a lot of potential for people to develop. So it's a better approach, you know, in people, yes, performance and people development. Well, actually, this has been, I'm sure you know, that this has been the approach in all organizations up to date. I mean, if you take training, for example, training relates to skills gaps. So we do a skills gaps analysis, and then, you know, basically we identify people's weaknesses, and then we try to, you know, give them as much training as we can in order to upskill them and improve them and get their performance and, you know, all these things that companies say. Now, it's good that critique exists because, of course, it's more objective, you know, to see both sides of the discussion. And to an extent, to be honest, we could say that focusing only on one side, focusing only on the strengths, could be limiting for individuals. But on the other hand, focusing only on weaknesses is also equally or even more limiting, because, as we said before, weaknesses represent the minus in our performance. So, I mean, how can we go from the -5 to the +9? So, again, we have to, you know, we have to exercise our judgment here and see, you know, how much effort and how much attention we give to strengths and how much to weaknesses. Now, weaknesses, if we could define them in a way, they interfere with our peak performance. They interfere with our ability to give the best that we have in us or others. Also, if you think about it, weaknesses keep us back to the past. They keep us to our mistakes. I'm sure that all of you have heard the famous expression, trial and error. Well, by definition, this expression means that I tried in the past, I tried to perform, you know, and I made a mistake. So I learned from my mistake. So the word error in itself brings a negative connotation, you know, and it has psychological effects on the individual. So in the past, this was the approach, you know, this, not in the past, also in the present, but this is the approach. What don't I do well? So this is what I need to improve. And this is fair enough. I know where, I have to know what I do well, and I have to know what I don't do well. It's just that I don't want to be, limited, limited in my weaknesses. Now, okay, all this theory and all this talking is fantastic. I know my weaknesses. I know what I don't do well. Now, what do I do about it? So what? I mean, how is this going to benefit me if I know what I don't do well? Well, research shows that the way to manage my weaknesses is to make them irrelevant. To make them irrelevant, to take them out of my way in my everyday performance. Now, this might seem easy, of course, but again, how do I do it? Well, there's different ways of making our weaknesses irrelevant. Of course, one of them is the traditional way to train them and bring them to a level where we reduce error. So, if my job involves public speaking, for example, I'm taking this example all the time because my job involves public speaking, so, but I think your job as well as the trainer. So if my job involves public speaking and I'm not very good at it, what do? Well, I take training in public speaking, I join the Toastmasters, I take professional advice, I expose myself, I practice. Now, the thing is that okay, I bring this to a decent level of speaking in front of the public, but the key is whether this will bring me energy at any time. So if we assume that energy is one of the main elements of strengths, and I don't get it out of public speaking, we're talking about a weakness that I can bring to a good level, for my job, but it will never give me this pleasure. It will never make me feel powerful and energetic when I use it. So it is still a weakness. So the first way of making weaknesses irrelevant is train them to a level of competence, that is demanded from my job. The second thing is, to cooperate, to work with other people. Which people? People who have strengths where we have weaknesses. So if, for example, I'm good at writing and my peers are good at public speaking, why don't I prepare their speeches, or why don't I prepare the training material and they present it? So team working and cooperation is a very good way to manage my weaknesses. Or a third way even could be to identify new tasks in my job that relate mostly to my strengths rather than to my weaknesses. Even change job position in an organization, create a new job description around my strengths. This is also an option. And a fourth way is to combine my other strengths, to cover for my weaknesses. So if I go back to the example of public speaking, organization and preparation and detail could be my strengths, and they could help me very well with my weakness of speaking in front of a public. So we see that as long as we are aware of our weaknesses, we can manage them, and they can also help us in our performance, if we manage them well. And definitely they should not limit us if we accept this new mindset, if we develop this new mindset of building on our strengths. So I would be very interested later on to hear how if you have identified any of your weaknesses, how do you manage them, and if these ways that I'm mentioning are anyhow, to any extent realistic, and they work in practice, they work in real life. Now, talking about mentors, we definitely have to, to go to the point of strength spotting. Now, strength spotting is a person's ability to identify strengths in others. So imagine how important it is for a mentor to be able to identify the strengths of the mentee. Now, research has shown that the strength spotter well, he might have many other strengths, but the ones that are directly related to spotting strengths in others are building rapport and networking. So you have, as a mentor, to spot the strengths in your mentee, you first have to build rapport with them. So you have to be able to establish a very good level, an effective level of communication and trust with your mentee, and understand them as an individual, understand them as a personality and as a strengths base, you know, so to be able to identify. And networking, be able to connect with other people. I mean, if you don't connect with other people, if you're not good at it, there's no way you can spot their strengths as well. Another important strength of the strength spotter is development, honest interest in the development of others, and also practical skills in the development of others. For example, the mentor, you know, he has to be able to guide their mentees towards lifelong learning, new sources of information and learning, and you, especially as vet trainers, are very good in the development of others, because strengths, as we said, come out of talents if they're built with knowledge and skills. So talents must be developed to become strengths, and the mentor has to be able to develop their mentees, you know, to guide them, and also themselves, but I'm talking about spotting other strengths. Also, another very important strength of the strength spotter is to be able to help other people to build self-esteem, and this also relates to knowledge and skills, because research in performance shows that, and general satisfaction shows that when people achieve things, then their self-esteem increases. So when your mentees really do something well and they achieve their goals, the self-esteem increases. So as a mentor, you have to be able to identify what gives people satisfaction. I mean, what are the goals of your mentee that they will increase their self-esteem? What do they want to achieve, you know, to increase their self-esteem? And in their peak performance, you know, in their achievements, you can identify their strengths, because the strengths support peak performance and achievement. And of course, another strength of the strength spotter is constructive feedback. Actually, in the literature, we see strengths-based feedback. As a mentor, to be able to give your mentees feedback on their strengths and on their successful past, you know, ask your mentees what they achieved in the past, how exactly they achieved it, what they did, what behaviors they had in the past, and they achieved things, and then, you know, guide them, take them through the process of repeating these successful behaviors again, because these successful behaviors, they are supported by strengths. I mean, success is very much related to the use of our strengths, because, you know, we're talking about peak performance. So these are the 5, yes, rapport building and networking I use as 2, but these are the main strengths that have been identified in the literature and in research about the strength spotter. Another comment that I would like to make about the strength spotter is that, you know, he must have these 3 indications again about using his own strengths. What I mean is that someone who wants really to identify strengths in others, he must be very good at it. So he must have the skills to spot strengths in others. He must have the interest. He must want to do it, you know, care about others and want to identify their strengths and help them to use them. He must use it often, so not just once, but often in their interactions. Also, he must be able to do something with the results. I mean, okay, I spot the strengths of my mentee. I don't know, he's very good at strategic thinking, for example. He has a strength in strategic thinking. As a mentor, what do I do with it? You know, how do I take the process further in order to help my mentee to incorporate their strengths in their goal setting and action planning? So it's also what do I do with the strength that I find. And of course, you know, do I get energy out of that? Does it make me happy, you know? Does it make me feel good when I spot other people's strengths and I contribute to their development? So, you know, these are the indicators of my using a strength in being a strength spotter. I mean, I hope I don't confuse you with all these strengths in my sentences, but you know what I mean. These are the indications of whether I'm a good strength spotter, you know, and I'm really using my strengths. And the last comment, the last thing I would like to say about the strength spotter is that research has correlated these strengths with the personality of the strength spotter. So someone who is strong at spotting other people's strengths, he's most probably an extrovert and a sociable person. He's positive and he has positive thinking, and he is an optimist. And of course, he is knowledgeable. He has knowledge about all this strengths research. So, you know, we see how also the personality of the mentor, for example, relates to his ability to be a good strength spotter. He must be, basically, he must be people-oriented. He must be people-oriented, you know. He must care about other people, about the mentees. And this is, you know, this is basic. This is fundamental in mentoring as well as in strength spotting. Now, what are the benefits? Because, you know, it's very good to speak about all these things, and it's very nice to talk about strengths. But has there been any, is there any evidence of the benefits? Well, yes, there is evidence in the literature, in the research, and, you know, we have evidence for the mentee and the mentor because, you know, in modern mentoring approaches, we do not consider that a mentoring relationship is only beneficial for the mentee, but it is a dual, you know, a reciprocal relationship that also brings benefits to the mentor. So, and this is the real value, this is the magic of mentoring. So, you know, for the mentee, if they know their strengths, they have higher performance and goal achievement. And this leads to self-esteem and self-efficacy because this is purely psychological. You know, the more successes I have and the more goals I achieve and higher performance I have, I feel good and proud about myself, and my self-efficacy increases. In other words, my self-efficacy means my belief that I'm able to do things. You know, I believe in my abilities. And also my resilience as a mentee increases. So, you know, I'm not demotivated by obstacles, but I, you know, move forward and I come back stronger and I do things. My commitment to my goal and less stress, more energy, and of course more success. So, and I don't mean to say that this is the, you know, we live happily ever after, but it always failure is always involved in the picture, you know, in our real life, and problems, and we have to overcome obstacles. But imagine how much more effective it is if we you know, manage these obstacles and these difficulties in a more positive light, in a more resilient and decidedful manner than in a pessimistic way, where we take obstacles for granted and we see a bleak picture of the future. So I'm not trying to draw the happy picture, you know, in that there's no problems in real life. But what I'm suggesting is, you know, that we can address and we can manage these things better if we have the positive view of things. And then also for the mentor, such a mentoring relationship based on you know, positive thinking and strengths and optimism for the future, it also brings motivation because they see their mentee develop, and satisfaction, and you know, the mentoring relationship is much better. And also there is development for the mentors themselves, and self-esteem that they really contribute to a good cause, and definitely commitment to the relationship. And of course, as we said, the mentor has to get energy out of that and contribute to a successful relationship. So you know, the benefits are dual, they're mutual, and it's, you know, it's very good for mentors to have knowledge of all this, you know, before they engage in a mentoring relationship. And to sum up, because I would like to hear you talking, it's very important to hear what you have to say. In order to change this mindset and adopt a new approach, a new positive approach, I focus on my talents, and I develop them with knowledge and skills, and you know, I do a self-observation, a self-evaluation. What do I do well? How often I do things that go well? And then the thing that only I know what gives me energy. Of course, sometimes energy can also be, you know, self-explanatory. Other people can see it, but deep inside, it's only me that really know what gives me energy in an activity. And then how I can use and combine my strengths, and how I evaluate my strengths, how I use my judgments in every situation. And, you know, I don't forget my weaknesses, but I approach my weaknesses, I speak to my weaknesses from a positive framework, from a strong framework, so I can definitely, you know, manage them in a more effective way. Thank you very much, and now we will have 15 minutes for questions and answers if you want. So